Good afternoon. We begin in the Middle East, where Israel's Prime Minister says he cannot accept Hamas's demands for an end to the war. Benjamin Netanyahu insists that keeping the group in power would pose a threat to Israel. He's released a statement after talks with Hamas resumed in Cairo today.
Throughout the negotiations, Israel demonstrated a willingness to go a long way that was described by US Secretary of State Blinken and others as extraordinarily generous. But while Israel showed this willingness, Hamas remained entrenched in its extreme positions, chief among them the demand to withdraw all our forces from the Strip, end the war and leave Hamas intact. The State of Israel cannot accept this. We are not ready to accept a situation in which the Hamas battalions come out of their bunkers, take control of Gaza again, rebuild their military infrastructure and return to threatening the citizens of Israel in the surrounding settlements, in the cities of the south, in all parts of the country.
Well, this afternoon, Hamas says they are keen to reach a comprehensive agreement, including a Palestinian prisoner and Israeli hostage exchange deal. They also claim responsibility for a mortar attack on the Kerem Shalom crossing, where the US Secretary of State visited on Wednesday. And earlier today, Israel's cabinet voted to close Al Jazeera's operations inside the country, with the Prime Minister calling the media network a Hamas mouthpiece. Israel's communications ministry has confirmed a raid is underway at the Al Jazeera premises in Jerusalem. The broadcaster's chief in the region calls the closure dangerous and political. Well, earlier I spoke to our international correspondent John Sparks, who's in Jerusalem, and started by asking him about those negotiations between Israel and Hamas.
Bit of context here. The sides are actually talking. They're sitting down. They're meeting in Cairo at the moment. These talks began yesterday. Hamas sent a delegation. We're not sure if the Israelis are there directly or not, but we've got the Egyptians, the Qataris, the Americans. The Americans have even sent the head of the CIA to participate in these talks. They're serving as intermediaries between the two at the moment. And you know, the mood music leading up to this point has been pretty positive. There are elements that the two sides seem to agree on. The Israelis, for example, seem to be willing to offer a 6-week truce, a 40-day truce, or a pause in the fighting in Gaza in exchange for Hamas releasing around 30 hostages. It's also thought the Israelis are willing to countenance the return of hundreds of thousands of civilians to northern Gaza as well. But the real problem here is what happens next. What would happen after this pause in the fighting? What would happen after this temporary ceasefire? Hamas want this truce to move into a permanent ceasefire, an end to the war, an end to the fighting. But Netanyahu here in Israel and many members of the cabinet, they will not agree to that. And Netanyahu on repeated occasions has said that he seeks the destruction of Hamas. And he released a recording today. This is the first time that he has given his thoughts on these talks, which have been going on behind the scenes for a couple of weeks. He said that the Israelis have been working around the clock to forge an agreement with Hamas, but Hamas was holding entrenched positions on the end of the war. He said that Hamas wanted Israel to withdraw all of its troops. It wanted to end the war. And Netanyahu will not agree to that. So you've got irreconcilable positions here on the future of Hamas, on the future of the war. Very difficult to see how they will solve that. And I think as a result, some of the optimism is now sort of draining away.
And John, following a cabinet meeting this afternoon, Israel's cabinet has voted unanimously to shut down all of Al Jazeera News' operations inside Israel.
That is right. I mean, the Israeli government and Al Jazeera have long had a fractious relationship over many years. Al Jazeera is supported by the Qataris, by the Qatari government, the Qataris who are acting as one of the chief intermediaries at the moment between Israel and Hamas. So that is quite interesting. But this is the first time that the Israelis have shut down or announced their intention to shut down a foreign news media organization. This is how Al Jazeera reported the news a little while ago.
We're going to begin with breaking news from Israel, where the cabinet has voted to unanimously shut down Al Jazeera's operations in the country. That's according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a statement on X. Now, it's not clear when this decision is going to take effect.
So I think that the problem here is that Al Jazeera have been highly critical of the Israelis. They've been outspoken. They've had teams on the ground in Gaza since the conflict began on October 7th. The Israelis say they're acting on national security grounds. But I think it tells us that this war is being fought in lots of different ways. And one of those ways is the battle for global opinion. And Israelis, they do not like what Al Jazeera are saying.